The Mikey Bet Show, the Mikey Bet Show. Do you know the Mikey Bet Show?
Tino Antonacci made nothing but money off me. I'd be at Basta Pasta at 2 a.m. with 4 or 5 guys. We'd be off for there's no way he's going to get on the air tomorrow. No way. This one I was working from 10 to 2. Tino would go, I'll bet you $100 right now. He's on the air tomorrow, and you won't even notice that he was out. So I'd come on, hey, everybody, Mike North here on WSCR, The Score, along with Dan Jiggets. Mike, how you doing today? I'm doing good, Jigs. Everything going good. What'd you do last night? I was on the world tour last night, but you know me, when the red light goes on, and then we'd go to a break, I'd go, oh. And then we'd go back on. Bing, bang, boom. Right? Because nobody driving that's listening to me or any of the guys at The Score wanted to hear that shit, that you're hungover. Nobody wants to hear that. Hey, everybody, we're Metallica. We're tired from last night. They don't do that. Hey, I'm Mick Jagger. We're going to put on a show if we can, but we were out late last night, right? Hey, Sinatra, last night I was drunk till 4 a.m. We'll try to give you what you want. They just go out and do it. I live large.
Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
Hey, this is David Kaplan from the Cap J Hood Show on ESPN 1000 and NBC Sports Chicago. Now get ready to listen and watch to Bulls 101 with Kris and Larro. Take that, Sparkles.
What's up, Bulls fans? It's Chris Amundsen, my guy Larro Golden. Welcome to Bulls 101 on this Saturday evening. Getting some crazy news that just came out. But before we talk about that, just want to see how you're doing. How's the family? How's your week been?
Man, everything is all good. Family's all good. Just signed my son up for soccer again. So We'll see how this goes.
Not basketball season?
No. He comes to basketball practice with me when I go coach and everything. So he's getting his little work in there. He kind of hops in the drills with the guys. And so that's how that goes. But other than that, man, everything's all good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I got sunburned at the beach today. So it's fun. Yeah, Larro's not wearing a hat, Salim. I noticed his fresh cut. I was like, hey, okay, the hair's looking good. I haven't seen the hair in a while. But he's always looking good. So we got a lot of exciting stuff. We just had the draft on Thursday night. We're getting rumors for free agency that starts Monday afternoon, and to help us break it all down and just man, the OG, Mr. Mark Karantzoulis, who runs the Bulls HQ pod and his own website. You can check out his work there. And he's representing all of Australia, so. No pressure, Mark, but welcome to the show. How are you feeling, man? How's the kid? How's life? How's the sleep schedule going?
Yeah, sleep's not great at the moment, guys. As you sort of made very clear to me, Chris, that was going to be a problem. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Look, I'm sure we'll work it out. I'm sure I'll be fine. But no, you were right. Sleeping is not really happening at the moment. But you adjust. You learn to live with it, I suppose. But apart from that, yeah, everything's going well. Appreciate you asking.
You know what's crazy is, my first children, my first two, they were easy. You know what I mean? Slept 8 hours. You know, they eat, go to sleep. My third one, oh man, It's been a whole new experience. It's like a whole. It's like I'm a new dad to this whole game, man, because this dude does not sleep all night. It's like 45 minutes here, maybe 20 minutes here. It's been crazy, man. So I'm right there with you. So
yeah, my wife came up to me just before and she's like, "Can you do this afternoon shift?" And the thing that's annoying at the moment is he only sleeps in our arms, which is problematic. So she asked if I could do the afternoon shift. I was like, did you forget that I was doing a podcast today? And she's like, oh. So I don't know how life's going to be for me after this show, but I just want you guys to know that I'm potentially putting all that on the line for you guys. So.
I appreciate that. I do not want to get on the bad side of Mrs. K. So
seriously,
we'll do what we can here. Understand the priorities, but. Hey, listen, Mark. I mean, just before we got on the show, Mark Shanowski had a tweet basically saying Chris Haynes, who's a well-known reporter, was saying basically, except unless something majorly wrong happens, Lonzo Ball and the Chicago Bulls are going to try and work out a deal in the offseason for him to come here. So I know we've been hearing this for like 8 months now or whatever it's been. Basically, since Lonzo's been available, he's been linked to the Bulls. Yeah, but this is the most concrete, I guess, signal we've gotten so far with just, day and a half basically until free agency. How are you feeling about that news? Did you saw that tweet? I saw you saw it. So what are you thinking about it?
Yeah. Look, it feels like it's going to happen. The only way it doesn't happen is if, things go wrong with the Pelicans, let's say. So they're clearly clearing space based on the moves that they made just before the draft. So they're clearly clearing that space in order to take a run at someone like Kyle Lowry. I'm not assuming they're getting Chris Paul. I'm assuming they're not getting Mike Conley. So I'm assuming they're going after Kyle Lowry. That's been the reporting. So should they head that way, should they sort of not need Lonzo and not necessarily want to keep him around, then I would imagine in that scenario that Lonzo will be a Bull. The only way that doesn't happen necessarily is if maybe New Orleans strike out on that lead guard like a Lowry and they don't necessarily have anything to fall back on. And in that situation, then maybe they look to match a restricted offer sheet to Lonzo. So it's kind of up in the air still, but in the event that New Orleans get what they want in free agency, then I think Alonzo will be a Bull. So it is contingent on what the Pelicans do, but based on the reporting, there's clear interest between the Bulls and Lonzo. I'm pretty confident in saying that those two parties will at least ink an offer sheet. Whether he heads to Chicago, we'll see. But I most definitely think, I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen very early, but I would be surprised if the Bulls and Lonzo don't connect in some way. Fingers crossed it's more than just a offer sheet and it's something that can get him over the line.
Yeah, I totally, I'm right there with you, man. Like it's crazy because we've talked about Alonzo a good bit on here, and I feel like at a point it was like, I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe he might go, somewhere else. And as time has gone on, I want to say maybe like a week or two ago, maybe like I started to like it started to ramp back up for me. I'm like, maybe this could happen. Maybe it could happen. And you start seeing, I was telling Chris, you start seeing him wear red and black all the time. He's talking to Levine all the time on Instagram. And I'm like, maybe it might happen. And then for sure enough today, man, that tweet was all I needed to see. I think it's going to happen. I think he wants to be in a big market. I think, and why not the third biggest? So I'm happy that it might happen, man.
Red Larro, it's here. Red Larro is happening. Red Mark, Red Fred, Red Ted.
Well, I mean, the reporting's all there, right? So like, Woj has been banging on about it for a number of months now. Shans has done the same. I think what you guys are referring to as the tweet, Chris Haynes via Mark Shanowski watching an NBA TV special. So like the three of the 4 or 5 best newsbreakers in the NBA are suggesting that Lonzo to Chicago is a thing that's going to happen. And when I say that, it's a thing that's going to happen to signing an offer sheet. Again, like I said, New Orleans control this. So they still could maybe wreck this all for us. But the reporting is there. That's why we should feel confident about it being a thing that will potentially happen. So it's going to be an interesting 48 hours once the free agency window opens up, because that's effectively how long the Pelicans will have to match an offer, which is why I assume the Bulls and Lonzo, the minute 12 or 6:01 or whatever it is, when free agency opens up, I'm assuming they will come to some sort of agreement straight away to put the Pelicans on the clock, so to speak. I would be shocked if they leave it go a number of days. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, there's kind of two things that have me a little worried. Number one, the word hiccup in Mark Chanowski's tweet scares me a little bit, because it is contingent, it seems like, on the Pelicans' other targets coming to the Pelicans, right? If Kyle Lowry decides to be a Maverick or Miami, remember the Miami Heat, they may have to do some contingency plans, and that's why they offered them qualifying offer today to Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart to make them restricted free agents. I know you just put out a series of tweets about the different ways that the Bulls could go about getting Lonzo Ball here. So, I mean, it could be as simple as they pull a qualifying offer, he becomes a free agent, we clear cap space and make him an offer, and that's it. Or it could be a sign and trade, and you mentioned several scenarios where we're moving Sato, waiving Aminu, all these different things. I know we've talked about that before, so if you guys are interested that are watching this, you can go check out Mark's tweet at MK Hoops to kind of see the different options here. But I mean, I'm hoping that they do the over the cap route personally, because I really want them to use their mid-level exception on a wing, or if Lonzo is considered the wing. I know I got a bunch of feedback on Twitter from Lonzo Ball stands that I'm a stand too. Okay, I want Lonzo Ball on this team.
You were right though. Don't listen to me. You were right. So.
Oh, I know. No one had anything concrete that they could say to do a little reflection. Larro, you got something for us? What's going on here?
I'm trying. I got something for you. I'm going to try to help our guy Mark here really quick with something to see.
Oh, the tweets.
Yeah,
maybe pull those tweets. So, yeah, but the hiccup part still worries me a little bit, though. The contingency plans, but we've gotten reporting. There's several different point guards available this summer. There's one more point guard though that was also rumored to have mutual interest with the Bulls coming back, and that's Derrick Rose. And I'm going to say this: you guys better be sitting down, because Larro Golden is about to say something that I never thought he'd say. Larro, what do you think about Derrick Rose coming back to the Bulls?
You're going to put me on the spot like this, okay? So, I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of Derrick. And obviously he can still get to the bat. I mean, get into the paint and put some pressure on the cup. That's still something he can do. But my concern is a team that's not built with a defensive structure for a guy like him. That I mean, if you watched the Knicks versus the Hawks in that series, I mean, it was me myself. Yeah, I was. Yeah, Derrick still can drop 30. Like, oh my God, let's do it. But then you see him get a bucket, and then you see him run like a double screen on the other side, or just a ball screen on the other side, and Derrick is just dead on the screen, and he's the cause of a lot of the defensive breakdowns on the other end. And maybe I'd feel different if instead of Vooch, it was Wendell, and there was, we get Lonzo. There's another defensive piece. You got Pat that could play the 4. Maybe I'd feel different, because then you have guys that can, help out Derrick. But we don't have, the structure, to take care of a Derrick on the other end, and he couldn't guard Trey, so they had him guard DeAndre Hunter in some possessions, and that's not ideal. You know what I mean? Because now you're gonna have to send help, and when you send help, now if he's smart enough, he'll make the right pass, and now your defense is in a flux. So it's just too much. It's just too much. And I see our guy Jordan Guilty saying that Chicago doesn't deserve Derrick. And part of me, in my head, I feel the same way. But at the same time, if you take all the emotional stuff out and you really just look at the tape and you watch him play, like, this just may not be the best spot for him. I think he should probably get to the point of ring chasing. Maybe he should try to go, to the Clippers or the Lakers and play 20 minutes a game and be productive. But I don't want to come off as like an asshole, but I mean, that's just that's just how I feel. So yeah.
Does that mean if I agree with you, I am an asshole?
No, I don't think so. I just want to just clarify for my boy Guilty. I don't want him to throw me off the edge. Like, oh, he don't want Derek. Get out. I don't want that. So yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Guilty. He left a comment there before that he set an alarm to get up and watch this one. So I'm assuming he only did that because I was on the show. But yeah, I definitely. I mean, you're right though. But like, it doesn't. I was very surprised. Like, Rose has been linked to the Bulls, right? So Woj had it. I think Casey Johnson mentioned it as well. That where things got different for it, or where the reporting maybe changed some, is maybe within the last 24 to 48 hours has been reporting that not only are the Bulls going to chase Lonzo, that they're potentially going to go after a second ball handler too, and that's when they made the connection with Derrick Rose. Now, the Knicks have $50 million in cap space. Maybe they offer him a 2-year, $30 million deal or a $2 million, $40 million deal, whatever it might be, and then the Bulls just can't compete from a financial perspective. But if they're offering a deal that's somewhere between the vicinity of, say, $7 to $10 million, and there is a world where the Bulls can sort of get into that, negotiation, let's say. And obviously, we know Derek's connection to Chicago. So I was surprised by that element of the reporting, that not only would they go after Lonzo, but then they potentially would go after Rose. And to me, that's where it doesn't make any sense at all, because you could manufacture your space or your cap sheet to get Lonzo, to get Rose, but thereafter you don't really have many other assets to really wheel and deal. You would in that scenario, you probably don't have any more cap space, meaning you only have like your room mid-level exception, which is $4.5 million, $5 million, and then beyond that you would have vet min type deals. So at that point, like, who's playing on the wing? And to your earlier comment, Chris, about people taking issue with you noting Lonzo as a wing. Well, I do think he's more of a wing at this point. I mean, he's a basketball player. Maybe he's a hooper as well, but he's certainly a basketball player who, can play multiple positions. But for the Chicago Bulls, like, if you're going after Rose, you've got Lonzo, and you're a team that doesn't necessarily have many wings beyond, Patrick Williams, who I think should be shifting up to power forward, and Troy Brown Jr., then there will invariably be rotations and minutes where Lonzo is forced into playing on the wing. And I don't know if it's just due to the fact that people just don't realize that in New Orleans that Lonzo is more of a wing, less than a point guard. And maybe they do realize and then just assume he's going to come to Chicago and automatically transfer and become, this version or a new version of Jason Kidd or something like that. But to me, he's not a real point guard anymore, that's what he came into the league as. But he's just a basketball player, and he's a guy that can play multiple positions. But for this specific team, if they add Rose and they add Lonzo, and you don't have many other tools to add wings, then I'm sorry, but Lonzo's going to have to spend a lot of his minutes on the wing, which I would be fine with. But I guess that it would be problematic in the sense that you just don't have a lot of wings. So that's why I don't love it either, Larro. And beyond, not having many wings, I think it would be interesting as well, like how it all works from a point of view with Kobe and Derrick Rose, who, they're not the same players. Their skill set's very different, but in terms of role, playing off Levine, playing off Vucevic, and ideally both of them preferably being like sixth men types, like, is there too much crossover between those two guys as well? And we know Kobe's injured, so maybe you need another guard to sort of come in and help you initially whilst Kobe is hurt and, returning to form. But once you are healthy, like, how does Billy Donovan manage that rotation? We'll get into the draft later on as well, but with Ayo as well, you've got another sort of backup combo guard. So I don't know, there's a lot of crossover, which is why I don't love the idea of it, but it is interesting to think that maybe the Bulls go that route.
Before we move on, Chris, can we talk about what Mark said and we've said multiple times? The Lonzo being a wing and not a point guard, and I think people need to understand it's not a slight. That's not saying that Lonzo is a horrible basketball player and he is only this. Like, no, that means that his strength is being a wing player. Like, I don't understand why people take so much offense to, Mark or anybody who says it. Like, he's more of a wing than a point guard. I mean, Like, how do you guys feel about that? I feel like we have to touch on that for the viewers so they can understand that.
Well, let's talk about this, right? So it depends on what you think of as a point guard, but in the league, in the NBA, most point guards, or if you will, a primary creator, doesn't have to be a point guard position, right? You guys, Luka, LeBron, you get a bunch of guys that are primary creators. So if you're thinking of point guard as a primary creator, it's someone who runs a lot of pick and roll as the ball handler and is effective. Good point guard, a good a good creator is effective in that scheme. And so you have to be able to draw defenders. You have to be able to either shoot. You have to be able to break down the defense in some way, right? And that involves getting to the basket or being such a great, off the dribble shooter, something like that. You got guys like Dame that do that, or you guys like Derrick Rose breaks down the defense by driving to the basket. Russell Westbrook does the same thing, right? So what Lonzo does is not get to the basket. He has one of the lowest rates in the league of getting to the basket. He avoids contact, so he's not drawing defenders. He's not drawing fouls often, and he is a much better catch and shoot shooter than off the dribble. So he's not the person that's going to be initially breaking down the defense for you. So in that sense, he's not a primary creator. He's more of a wing player. He's a connector point guard, right? He's a point guard who, once the advantage is created, he can keep the advantage for your team by making the right play, passing it, shooting it, whatever he's got to do. So it's not a slight at all. It's just the role that he fits in is not a primary creator. But the good thing is we already have two primary creators in the sense of Zach LaVine, who can break down the defense off the dribble and who is a great shooter off the catch, off the dribble. And he's one of the greatest perimeter players in the league right now. He's like top 5. And then you have Vooch, who draws a lot of people down low and creates advantages with his passing in the post and his post work, and he can also pop out to 3. So you've got those two guys. That's why Lonzo is such a great fit, is because he can play and maximize his connector role on the Bulls and be a wing on the defensive end and kind of roam on the defensive end. So it's not a slight at all. That's just the reality. And I know that the argument that I've heard, sorry for being long-winded here, but the argument that I've heard from other fans is that, okay, yeah, well, that was his role in New Orleans because of the roster construction. But before, when he was with the Lakers and, before he came to the NBA, he was more in the primary creator role, which I understand, but he's changed his game a lot. So I personally think he has the ability to get better as a pick and roll ball handler. He should be able to get to the rim with more frequency. He has the ability, he has the quickness, the agility, the athleticism to do so. And he's a very, very, very smart. I mean, he's a gifted passer. Yeah. So I'm not telling you he can't be a point guard, that he can't be a primary creator one day. But currently, that's not something the Bulls fans should expect from him coming into the next season. That's all I'm saying.
And you're 100% right. I mean, like, for Lonzo to be a primary creator, basically what you're saying is you want the ball in his hands as the lead option instead of a pick and roll sort of situation between LaVine and Vucevic. Like that's effectively what you're saying. Like, that is going to be what the Bulls build their offense around, the LaVine and Vucevic pick and roll. And given what we feel about that potential two-man combination, like, why would you put the ball in Lonzo's hands in that instance to make him the primary initiator? And even if he could, create things off the bounce or do things in half court and those sorts of situations, which I completely agree with you, Chris. That's just not what he can do at the moment. Like, maybe in 3, 4, 5 years, potentially, if his jumper sort of continues to improve from the mid range, maybe he can take those off the dribble jumpers, and maybe defenders have to sort of play him a different way, and therefore that opens up his drive game. But thus far, based on the way he's played, he doesn't get to the rim, he doesn't get to the free throw line. He's not really a lead primary initiator, and because of that, and because the Bulls have someone who should be commanding most of the offense, which is the LaVine Vucevic pick and roll, like, it just doesn't make any sense to put Lonzo at point guard or as the lead initiator. And that's why they didn't do it in New Orleans, because they had Point Zion basically going. So like you're going to default or defer to your better options, and Levine and Vucevic are better options as the lead guys on the Bulls offense. So whether you think about it from an offensive standpoint, to me, he's not really a lead creator. Whether you want to, the semantics around this whole thing, like is a lead creator the same thing as a point guard? I don't know. But then when you come back to defensively as well, like again, thinking about this Bulls roster, if the Bulls don't have a lot of wings and Lonzo's sort of forced into defending 2s and 3s, is he still a point guard then? To me, probably not, because someone else is defending the point guard, and maybe Derrick Rose, maybe it's Kobe White or whoever it is. So who's the point guard then? Again, it's a semantics thing, but I don't think Lonzo is a quote unquote point guard, which maybe we can't necessarily get to that point because everyone has a different definition of what a point guard is. But I think you mentioned it, Larro. Like someone, for whatever reason, people take calling Lonzo a wing or not a point guard as a derogatory term almost. Right. The same way people were coming after me when I was sort of suggesting that Patrick Williams is a power forward, not a small forward. Like people got really up in arms about that. It's like, no, it doesn't mean he can't be good or he's bad or anything like that. It's just, this is where he probably better fits. And I don't know why people get so hung up on these things, but if they want to whine about it, so be it.
Well, it's because we're C-Red. We're C-Red, so we're...
I think also, too, just to even think about it, like if you, right, so one, Levine was one of the best ball handlers in the pick and roll last season, and one of the best in the league. Right, you put him in a pick and roll with Vooch. That's a beautiful thing, right? Last season, we had Garrett Temple. No shots to Garrett Temple at all. Like GT, hey man, you balled out. Helped, you balled out. But I would rather have GT on a wing or a corner rather than having Garrett Temple be in those spots. So if Vooch catches it, or if Zach sees the tagger dropping down on Vooch, you can hit the corner. And if you put it in Lonzo's hands in those type of situations, that's where his magic happens, where he's became a great catch and shoot 3-point shooter, and he's always been a guy that's been good at being an advantage creator. So if you give him a situation where you're making his reads easier, we can attack a closeout, more times than not, he's going to make the right pass every single time.
And Larro, that's exactly why he is an excellent transition creator, because the advantage is already there. He doesn't have to create the advantage. You're in transition, so the defense isn't set. He's so good at taking advantage of an unset defense. But when you have the set defense, that's where his game needs to improve. And it hasn't yet. And that doesn't mean he can't do it. Doesn't mean he can't do it. Right. And I think he knows that, and I think he's working on it. Guarantee it. I'm sure he probably hates being called a wing. He's like, hey man, I'm a point guard, right? So he's probably downvoting this video as we speak. But
where Lonzo can be a point guard is in transition. So like get the rebound, get it to Lonzo, and let's push. Like that's where he can be a rebound, because you're not in a set half court situation where defenses sort of can take away the things that he does well, and then just let him sort of take away the things he does well and sort of force him into things he can't do. So in transition, that's where Lonzo is born to thrive. But I guess the interesting situation with that is, I mean, Vucevic isn't really a transition player. So like, how do you marry those two guys together? We saw the Bulls transition.
I got the vision. I got the vision. Mark. Tell me. Levine and Pat are running on the wings because they can both catch the lob. They can shoot.
Yep.
Vooch is your trailer.
Yes.
To hit that three.
That top of the key three,
or to start a dribble handoff or whatever you need to do. So if Lonzo can get that advantage with or Kobe White, and a catch and shoot three, he was great transition catch and shoot threes last season as well. So that's the vision I have for it. Like Lonzo is gonna cook in transition.
Yeah,
I think that's where you put Vooch though, is as the trailer.
And that's Oh yeah, go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say that's one way you can make it work. The other way it would work is you push those sorts of lineups when Vooch is on the bench, and then you keep Lonzo and Levine together, maybe in that second unit or whatever the phasing of your rotation may be, to exploit that element of Lonzo's game. And then when Vooch comes back in, maybe you sort of shift your offense back to a more post-heavy type pick and roll
Yep.
type offense. So
Yep.
that's the way it can maybe work. To your point, Chris, as a trail option, having him sort of trail as a 3-point shooter at the top of the key, like, then maybe that makes sense too. But like that would be interesting lineups. So you got Lonzo leading the break with Patrick Williams out there, Levine, and maybe you're throwing Troy Brown Jr. out there, who again is a better player in transition than maybe the half court too. So it can work. It's just going to be interesting to see how they balance it. I guess I guess he and Vucevic are kind of polar opposites in terms of the way they ideally want to play, but how you blend it all together, I think that's going to be an interesting thing to monitor.
Yeah, I'm glad that, man, we have this conversation, because I feel like a lot of this, we needed to get this off our chest, because like, we can have all, our great guests that we usually have and everything, but like being able to talk to you, Mark, that watches the same amount of Bulls games as us, and be able to get down to the nitty gritty of what this team needs and to break it down. Like, this just feels good. I'm not gonna lie. So like, man, I'm just loving this. And Don Burr, hey brother, C Red, brother. This is C Red. Go ahead and enjoy Cade somewhere else, brother. Go ahead.
Hey, I appreciate your love for Detroit, and they do have a great young core, but you're holding the sign up in the wrong vicinity.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Hey, so I wanted to touch on something that you guys talked about. Move the transition from Lonzo. Just quickly to Derrick Rose, and Mark, you mentioned it, the kind of overlap a little bit with Kobe and Rose, and also the other player here is if we're looking to sign Rose in around a $8 to $10 million range, let's say the mid-level exceptions available, or if we jettison off some other pieces. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, hey, if we get rid of Sato, bring Rose in, that would be really nice, because Derek can get to the basket and put some rim pressure. Then I started looking. I was like, I wonder how they both did this year in that. And I was kind of shocked to find out that, so Derek, for example, this year was his lowest rim frequency since he's been in the league. He only got to the rim on 28% of his possessions, which is a career low. It's and it's below average. It's 45th percentile for point guards. Tomas Satoransky, on the other hand, got to the rim 33% of the time, which for his position as a combo guard was 8th percentile. But the finishing is really what got me. So the finishing, Derrick Rose at the rim, 53%, which is 25th percentile in the league. And that shocked me. I did not think it was that bad. And then I looked at Tomas Satoransky finished at the rim 78%, which is 98th percentile in the league. Yeah. And so I was like, man, if we're talking about rim pressure, Satoransky had a much better year getting to the basket and finishing at the rim. I don't know what you guys thought about that, but I was surprised to find that number out, because we watched Derek in the playoffs with the Knicks, and he was the engine of that offense basically, and I think he has a lot to offer. But I guess between him and Satoransky, who do you think fits better? Because I'm kind of leaning Satoransky right now.
It kind of feels like Sato's gone for whatever reason, and maybe I'm wrong. And maybe if you're an above the cap team and you can sort of sign and trade Lonzo for Lowry, and then you what's the name? You use the mid-level exception to sign Derrick Rose if that's something you want to do, and then you don't have to get rid of Sato. So maybe that's the way they're thinking about maybe keeping both of them. And I'm assuming the Bulls start free agency by being an above the cap team, and they already are, to be fair, because they've taken the qualifying offer on Larry Market, and that's a capital of $20 million. That puts them above the cap right now. So they're starting free agency in that way. So there is a world where you can get Derrick Rose and Lonzo and keep Sato. But in terms of your, the numbers that you sort of put forward there, I guess my only pushback would be that, yes, in terms of finishing, maybe Sato was more efficient than Derrick Rose, but in terms of the ability to get to the rim, to change and warp the defenses, I think defenses will fear Derrick Rose more so than Sato. And from a volume point of view, the types of attempts that Sato would be getting versus Derrick Rose, and not to mention the fact that the Knicks, I'm just thinking about the Knicks offense and how clogged those lanes potentially were as well. Like, I don't think Derrick Rose is ever going to be an efficient player. He was never really an efficient player, and even in his MVP season, he wasn't overly efficient, Larro. At age 32, 33 or whatever he is now, like I'm not expecting him to be an uber efficient player, but I do think he could get to a different level to what we saw in New York from a finishing at the rim point of view. Now, all that said, like he was really good from a jump shooting point of view in New York this season. So I guess my point is to say, in a more open offense, I think Derek could be more efficient, and maybe some of the looks that Sato was getting, if Derek were to get that, then he would be more efficient. But I think he just provides a different level of rim pressure to someone like Satoransky. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting situation because then again, like if you keep Sato, but then and then you get Lonzo and you get Derrick Rose, then the same thing remains where Sato's going to have to play wing, or Lonzo's going to have to play wing. So they just need some wings, I guess, is my point, and which is why the decision to take a guard in the draft may be an interesting one when we get to the end of free agency and we see how the entire roster shakes out. But I wish this team had more damn wings, and everything else would just make more sense. But it's similarly not the way it's going to shape up.
It's like the Stefano. Do you guys see that video that Stefano put out towards the end of the season? Is this woman watching a student with a board, and there's all these different shapes, and she's watching them put the shapes into the different holes, but the kid puts different shapes into the same hole every time, and it's what the Bulls felt like playing all the different people at small forward over the year that weren't small forwards at all. And I hope we don't go into another season without. Now, obviously, we've got Troy Brown Jr. that fits that bill, so hopefully, that'll be someone. But that was really funny. I want to get this question real quick before we moved on to the topic. So 4 years, 80 million plus was the reported number. How do you guys feel about that? I went on record, maybe not on Twitter, but with some friends of mine and said, I think that deal is going to be a value deal in the same way that Zach's was, maybe not the first year, but I think Lonzo has a lot of room to improve, and I think in the right situation, I think he'll outperform that deal. So I think it's a good gamble to take on a second contract of a guy who's improved every year so far in the league.
Yeah, it's interesting. It depends. Like based on value right now, I don't love 4 for 80. Based on if he improves 5, 10, 15%, then maybe that becomes a value contract, and maybe if the cap moves as well, that cap line sort of jumps up over a few years, and then the next couple of years, then maybe it becomes an issue then as well. So there's that to consider too. But the way I've been thinking about this is like versus Alonso's max, which would be like 28, 29 million off the top of my head, something like that. Where does 20 million fall into that range? And it would be like sort of 65 to 70% of his max contract, which I think is reasonable. To me, Lonzo is a role guy. He's probably like the fourth of his best player, like a low-end starter type thing. That's how I view Lonzo on a team that actually matters. Now, on a lesser team, then maybe he can be more than that, or is forced to be more than that. But on a team that is competing for the second round and beyond, like ideally you don't want Lonzo to be anything more than your fourth best player. So in that case, 20-odd million a year, it's touch and go, but it's not unreasonable, I suppose, as well. So you do have to overpay in restricted free agency. It would be around 70% of his max, which is probably on the higher side that I would have liked. I would have liked to have got him at sort of 16 to 18, but I shouldn't even say gotten because we haven't got him yet. But like, if we do get him, I'd rather get him at 16 to 18. But you've got to overpay sometimes to get the guy you want. So, look, I'm not gonna have any issues with it if it's 4 for 80. Yeah, it's probably a couple more million than I would have liked. But when we start getting up to 4 for 90 or 4 for 100 or something like that, then that's when I'll probably have some issues with it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Everything you said, I totally agree with it. Now, I do believe that he is someone that can improve, and we know, Billy has came in and said player development. We'll see. I know there was a big gripe about last season where nobody really showed any improvement. So we'll see. But where he's at right now, to me, it's a bargain. Who knows, man? If he does improve, we may have him at a good price. And we can't complain about that. So,
for what it's worth, John Hollinger puts out he's got this formula called boards that he puts out for every free agent. He listed Lonzo Ball at $22,483,000 this year. So if he were to get 4 for 84 or 4 for 88, which is 22 million a year, that would be in line with what that formula at least thinks he's worth this year. So I think that's a good deal. It's a deal you should make. If you need a point guard, which we do, and his current value is listed, and he's only 23, I think that's a deal you make. So we've talked about Lonzo probably 20 minutes longer than I thought we would.
How funny would it be if he doesn't sign here? We've just watched 40 years.
That would be the longest blue balls in a sports-related thing that's happened to us.
Your next episode, you might be talking about Dennis Schroeder. The silence, the collective silence. Beautiful.
Well, I'm different, so I'll just leave it at that.
I'm not against Schroeder. I'm not against Dennis Schroeder. I am against Dennis Schroeder at $100 million over 4 years. If it's 12 to 15, 16 million, I think he fits well enough, and I think that's a reasonable enough contract that I wouldn't be drinking my sorrows. But if we're paying Lonzo money for Schroeder, no, thank you. Anyways, that's another thing. I'll talk about that subject.
Sorry for derailing you there.
No, it's a relevant conversation and something that is currently my greatest fear. not signing Lonzo, but the fact that if we don't sign Lonzo, we might sign Dennis Schroeder for the same amount. So we did get a point guard though this week on our roster, and his name is Ayo Dosunmu from the University of Illinois. Larro knows a lot about him. Doing some film breakdown. I know Mark and I were both kind of on the Sharif Cooper train before the pick ended up happening, but Ayo was also projected as a late first round, kind of mid to late first round pick. Ended up falling in our laps, and he's I don't know what it is about the Bulls and 6'5" guards with crazy hair, but we've now got a couple of them. So what can you tell us about Ayo, Larro, and what he can bring to this team? I know we've got some clips, so we're just going to pitch in as we go through these and kind of see what he can bring to this team.
Yeah. So with Ayo, he's someone I've been able to see him for a while just because he's from Chicago. So I've seen him play in person and things like that. But he is someone that improved every year at Illinois. I think that shows a lot about a player that improves in almost every category while he's at Illinois. He's 6'5", close to 6'6" with shoes on, with a 6'10", 6'11" wingspan. So we're not talking about, Kobe with that, T-Rex arms, wingspan, or Lowry. We're talking about a guard that has a very big wingspan that's going to be able to scale up. I think he'll be able to guard 1 through 3. I think he's that solid as a defender. I just think overall defensively he's just versatile, and he's wiry strong. He's a very strong guard as well. He's great in transition. To me, I think that's the best part of his game is getting out in transition. I think he finishes well at the rim. He's someone that I saw some tweets that said, "Oh man, he can be this. He did this at Illinois. As point guard, he could do this. We found our point guard." I'm like, no. Like, he's not a point guard. He's a combo guard. He struggles when you ask him to make advanced reads. That's not his deal. And he can improve. Who knows? Maybe he'll improve in that situation. But for me, I think he's a guy that can make. He knows when to hit the roller. He knows how to read the tag man. And if you're going to run a lot of what they are running, I think that is what you need out of him. I think, like you said, Chris, about Lonzo, I think he's a connector. I think he's someone you could put on a wing. I think you can run him off dribble handoffs. I think he's someone that can get downhill and attack the basket. He's got a 1-dribble pull-up in his game. So I think there's some pull-up upside to him, and I think you need that in today's game, especially against teams that's going to be drop heavy. I think you need that, and I think he has that 1-dribble pull up to him. I don't think he's that good of a catch and shoot player. As we'll see in some of these in some of these clips, you'll see he moves a lot in his jumper. And I think that's why he kind of likes that pull up. Is like when he takes that one dribble, he's able to get square and it's just a little bit more of a momentum dribble for him that gets him into a shot a little bit better. I think he likes that. But like overall, I think he's going to be a very good player for this team. I think. Well, let me slow down. I think he can be. I think he can be a very good player. I don't know if it'll happen his rookie year. I think he has the tools to do it in his rookie year, but who knows if he'll get the minutes depending on who you sign, depending on the situation. Who knows? Maybe he is one of those guys that plays like, you know, with a chip on his shoulder and shows different things. But I think he's a guy that can come in and contribute in minutes and give you some good minutes, I think, on both sides of the ball. I mean, I got some clips here. Unless you guys had anything that you wanted to bring up too about Ayo that you may have watched or anything like that. Is there anything that you guys want to bring up?
No, I'd say your evaluation based on what I've seen and what I know of him is pretty bang on. Now, I'm not going to say I'm an expert in Ayo. I'll defer to you, Larro. You would have most certainly seen more of him than I. But the takes that I have about him are less about him, let's say, but maybe I show them until after we watch these videos.
Okay.
I will say before we start the video, Larro.
Yeah.
Why aren't the Bulls allowed to have point guards? We're only allowed to have combo guards.
Well, I will say that one of the things that knocks me off the point guard side of things for him is I think his ball handling can be better. I think it's a little too out wide. I think it's not tight enough. And with a guy like him, like with his motor, my mentor worked him out, and he said that he is a hard worker. He is somebody that is going to improve. So if he can improve that handle and keep it tight so he's able to get downhill without losing the ball off his knee or his foot, I think there's some potential there. But right now, I think like you said, I think we were blessed again with the combo. So,
yeah, I agree. I think the point you made here about what his role is going to be, whether it's going to be a primary creator or not, I think is important for Bulls fans to understand going into this. So I know the film's going to reveal to us why that is. Why you think he's not going to be in that role, at least initially in the NBA.
Yeah. So for this first clip is, for me, I love two-way guys. And obviously you guys do, because I know Mark does because he's a Jimmy Butler guy. So obviously he loves two-way guys. But the one thing I love about him is right here, you'll see he loves that one dribble pull up. He'll get right into it. It's a knockdown. And that's something I think he is going to bring to the league. He's going to love that one dribble pull up and get to a shot. But this is what I love about Ayo, which is going to translate, is just he's a pest on the defensive side of the ball, right? I mean, off ball, which is a knock of him, actually. A lot of people feel like his off ball ability it can get better. But I just love when he's locked in. I mean, the dude moves his feet. He stays low. You can see the wingspan. He doesn't get hit by screens, and if he does, he gets right back into the play and he affects it. Like that, those are things that, as Bulls fans, we the way he fights through the screens and gets over and doesn't give up on the play. He's not as good as Matisse Thybulle, but it's something that he does like to do. He does like to try to get those rear view contests. And again, I'm not saying he's as good as Matisse at that. I'm just saying, for an example, as like a player that doesn't give up on if he does get clipped by a screen or maybe he does get hit by it a little bit, he's not going to die on it. He's going to try to get back into the play like he does here. He kind of gets hit a little bit and he fights right back into the play. So this is what I love about him, and that's where that 6'10", 6'11" wingspan comes. Like this screen here, he's gonna get clipped a little bit, right? Boom, he gets hung up a little bit, but he gets right back into the play, stays on his hip, and boom. That to me, like, that's stuff that we don't have enough of. We don't have enough of those type of guys on this team.
How many guys do we have on this team that can guard 1 through 3 right now? Maybe Garrett Temple. Right? and he's 35.
Right, and that's not something you want to rely on whatsoever.
TBJ, hopefully, right? TBJ, he can guard wings, and he did pretty good on Kyrie, but we need more of those guys, more switchable guards, more switchable wings. To go defense. I love the activity, and I think it makes sense if you think about the activity here from him, on ball versus off ball. Off ball requires activity and focus. Like you have to know the schemes, you have to see the breakdowns, you have to know when to help, and so the activity will help him if he's already active. As he gets more focused, as he gets more knowledge about the NBA defense he's going to be playing, I think the off ball will improve. Because you see the high motor already, and the way he navigates screens is really good. This is what, not that I'm an NBA player at all, but like when I play pickup, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm trying to anticipate the screens and get ahead of them so I don't get hit by them, because that blows up the advantage of the offense, and that's gonna run clock time down. It's gonna make for worse shots and better defense. And I actually think with the rear view contests, I think we're gonna see a lot better defense this year with the new rules that the league is implementing. With the the Chris Paul stop and shoot back as he's going to the lane, like that kind of stuff. I think I think our defense is gonna see healthy improvement just for that reason alone. But I agree that Ayo can be a good on-ball defender, and I think he'll be able to guard 1 through 3 eventually.
Yeah.
I don't think we should expect it from him this year. I'll say that though.
No, well, I mean, I'm just thinking of like future, right? What I think he can do. Like he's not a scrawny guy. He may be only 6'5", but he's not a scrawny guy. He's got a long wingspan. He fights. He's a defender, man. He's versatile. He's gonna get there. That's something that I do believe he will get to.
And before we go on, Mark. I'm not sure how much review you did of Ayo before the draft or after, but I think one of the things you had a podcast the other day, and I think one of the things you brought up with Moore Jensen, your guest, was the lack of a single elite talent. He's kind of like more across the board. So, do you think that's going to be a hindrance to him? Or because I feel like we kind of saw that last year when we drafted Patrick Williams, right? He's not elite at anything, but he seems competent at minimum at a lot of things with some upside there. So do you have any of those concerns with Ayo, or how do you feel about that lack of elite,
Yeah, look, just because someone doesn't necessarily have an elite skill, I don't think that's necessarily a problem. It just depends on the makeup around that player. You mentioned Patrick Williams as that type of player. I think Wendell Carter before him was that type of player too, where they're good at a lot of things, not necessarily great at a single thing or multiple things, which again isn't necessarily problematic, but it does become problematic depending on the role that you put them in. But if they're in there as a role as a role guy sort of thing, then I think that can really help a team, which is why I thought I made a lot of sense for like contending teams who, would have him as their 11th or 12th man, and in the event, an injury happened, then maybe you can bump him into your top 8 or 9 guys. Whereas in Chicago, maybe he is in your 11th or 12th guy, but maybe they're going to have to rely on him a lot more depending on what they do in free agency. We've already talked about the lack of wings, and there's a chance that Ayo is guarding a lot of small forwards just due to the makeup of this roster. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I guess my issue with it, with this specific draft was, the guys that sort of fell around Ayo, let's say, to number 38, who we mentioned Sharif Cooper before Chris. Like, there's a real world chance where Sharif just is a bad NBA player, he busts, and Ayo has just a much better career. And just because he's more steady player, high character guy, he's going to max out whatever the best version of himself is. Whereas someone like Sharif, maybe his defensive issues are just too great. Maybe the fact that maybe his jumper just never improves. Those sorts of things, and whatever elite talents he does have are sort of mitigated pretty quickly just based on his weaknesses. But I guess my thing is, like, for this specific Bulls team, who don't really have a lot of assets, like beyond say Levine, Vucevic, Pat, and Kobe, like right now, like who are the assets on this roster? Like that's why I was hoping for a little bit more of a high upside prospect. Now, I got some pushback by a lot of people saying that why isn't Ayo high upside guy. And I think to your point, Chris, like guys who are good at a lot of things but not necessarily great in one singular thing or multiple things, I have a very hard time, projecting them to being a high upside guy. But that doesn't mean they can't be good, but it's just something to consider, I suppose. So I think Ayo will be good. And in isolation, Ayo at number 38 is a perfectly fine and good, reasonable second round pick. It's just the other external factors beyond Ayo that make it more of an interesting test case.
And to go along with that, and I think one of the things that can take Ayo to another level is he shot 39% from three, but it was on a low amount of attempts. And I think that if he can really truly be that 30, well, I won't say 39%. If he could be somewhere like 36, 35, 36, 37, somewhere around there, I think that could really take him to another level of a player. Because if he's the type of player with his type of speed and athleticism, that if he can get guys to go over the screen and he's able to get downhill, I think that could add another element to his game. But right now, his consistency as a shooter, I think that's something that holds him back on the offensive side. And I think that is the one thing that could swing his level of, player, that you want to call him. But I think that is what can take him to another level, is the 3-point shot. If he can get teams to go over the screen more times than not, and be able to get into the paint and wreak havoc and use his athleticism and speed and long wingspan to get into guys. And I think that is something that can get him to what you guys are talking about, being a high upside guy rather than a safe pick. So
something that's interesting as I was reviewing the film as well is Ayo's shot is pretty unorthodox. The way, if you watch every shot, he is not very stationary.
Mm-mm.
He has some weird footwork where he almost like he'll jump and then kind of like spread his legs wider as he goes down. He's almost always leaning forward and to the right when he's shooting. So, he shoots a lot on the move, which I think makes it harder on himself to be an effective shooter long term, because you're not getting the consistency. It's not the same shot every time. It's always moving. So I'm wondering, in your expertise, do you think that has to change, or you think he can be successful? Or is that something that I'm just making a big deal of for nothing?
No, I think that has a lot to do with the shot consistency. I think if he was able to be more of a calm foot, shooter, someone that doesn't float all the time on every shot, like you get it, one dribble pull up, or if you're, going downhill and you got to pull up, you get it, you're going to move a little bit. But if you're set, like you gotta, I think that's one of the biggest things he has to change about his shot is, like you said, his feet and being more of a calm shooter, like in terms of like his body, being able to jump up, come right back down in the same spot to keep that trajectory where it needs to be, keep everything in line, and I think that's what kind of throws off his consistency. And that's a great thing you pointed out. I think that is a good point.
All right. So
the interesting thing with that, though, is like how many attempts or opportunities is Ayo going to have as a guy that can sort of create off the bounce?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to be happening early. I think, if anything, a lot of his offense will be, catch and shoot type opportunities, or he'll have to sort of get creative and start moving off ball and maybe hustling that way. So, whilst he was decent at, creating offense for himself off the bounce, is that something he's even going to get an opportunity to do in Chicago within the first couple of years of his career? Probably not. So, obviously he has to work on that element of his game, and there will be opportunities to do that. But at the same time, what I'm more interested to see is like, how can he be a plus offensive player if the balls aren't in transition and if he isn't necessarily getting the ball on ball? And how can he sort of create in that instance? So from that standpoint, I think I'm not expecting much from Ayo, to be honest with you, from an offensive standpoint initially.
Right.
And I think he's going to have to remodel his game to be a defensive type of guy. And maybe because he's not in that lead role like he was in Illinois, he can just focus his entire energy on just being like a 15, 20 minute type junkyard type guy like Shaq Harrison was. And he can come in and sort of influence the game in that way.
It's funny you said that. You'll see the theme of these clips are more defensive because that's what I think we're going to need from him right away, right out. And I think that's something he will be able to bring and be able to get minutes because of that. But offensively, I think you're correct. Like the thing about Ayo is, you think about guys like Jay Crowder or Cam Johnson or some of these guys that are just really good advantage creators that, they can knock down the three, but they also do a good job of making the right reads, after attacking closeouts or whatever situation you want to talk about. And I think that's where he can come in and be good, but I don't know how he will do that because there wasn't a lot of situations of him doing that unless it was Corbello on the floor playing point guard and he was kind of, two guard. But that didn't happen a lot. So like you can say that him playing on ball a lot in college helped him see the floor better and read defenses better. But if you're going to get to the league and that's not going to be your primary role, I don't know how much that helps. Maybe it helps a bit where you're on the corner and you're able to see what's going on and maybe make a cut off of here and there. But I think you're right, Mark. I think offensively, that's something we have to temper, the expectations on. Like, you got Zach, you got Vooch, you got Kobe when he gets back healthy, Lonzo maybe, hopefully. So their shot attempts, they're coming down and down and down. So I think for him, like you said, he's gonna have to change that mentality. Play defense, and if they get out in transition, unleash your strength. Get out in transition, run, and do those things. But in terms of half court, you're right. He's gonna have to be a guy that just maybe does this spaces the floor a little bit, and do the little things, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see.
The best comp that I've seen, and it's not necessarily a comp in terms of skill set, maybe more so a comp in terms of their initial role, is Terrence Mann.
Oh yeah.
Like Terrence didn't come into the league with a great shot, but he developed. He's to the point where he can hit that corner three.
Yep.
Now maybe he has to be open for a couple of seconds to nail it, but still, like he's a reliable shooter from the corner.
Yep.
But he made his way into the Clippers rotation by being that dog on defense, let's say, but then finding ways to influence the offensive game without the ball in his hands. And I think that's kind of how Ayo needs to look at film on Terrence Mann and sort of see, find ways where he can take bits and pieces from Mann's game and the role that the man plays for the Clippers and sort of supplement that over here to Chicago, because that's more realistic as to the type of role he's going to have here versus being an on-ball guy. I don't think that's realistic at any point.
Yeah.
Larro, is that not the exact comp that we talked about before the show started?
Yeah, man.
Did you say it to me? And did I just steal your thunder, or was that before I got
on? No, it was before. It was
before. It was before.
I feel bad
talking about it.
No,
it was great. No, I'm just saying that's the mind meld here is happening.
Yeah,
it just means that ball, Mark. Ball.
I mean,
well, but you've had a lot of people yelling at you lately, Chris, so maybe none of us know anything. And to be fair, I had a lot of people yelling at me post the draft. So, apparently I know nothing as well. So there we go.
I said one thing, but that wasn't attacking y'all. Just saying, Ayo is a good player. Now let's not, treat him like he's Chandler Hutchison. Now let's not do that. But anyway,
speaking of being in trouble, Mark is going to be in trouble if we keep him a super long time. So we better get to some more clips here. We're gonna be in. She's gonna come after us now.
I think this next clip is exactly what Mark is talking about in terms of his mindset and what he needs to focus on. You may not be able to get your 10 points, in half court, but doing things like this is something that he's gonna have to get his mind right. Is being able to use that wingspan and get a poke behind and get out in transition. And use that speed and athleticism to affect the game. And that's something that I think he definitely can do. And that wingspan, if he's going to be guard, that's Jared Butler, by the way, who I also wanted. Ayo's my dog, but he was kind of like my third, fourth option at the time. But Ayo can play. But this is Jared Butler, and as you can see, he uses that wingspan, pokes the ball out, and he just gets out and uses that speed and athleticism. And I think that's what he's got to get his mindset in the league at the next level. If you want to help the Chicago Bulls, this is the type of stuff that you have to do. Just be an absolute pest, right? And use that +5, +6 wingspan. Is this kind of like what you were thinking about here, Mark? These type of plays here?
100%. And you know how we were talking before about, maybe the best use of Lonzo is being a point guard in transition.
Yep.
Then, that's when Ayo's offensive game could sort of be, he could rack up a couple points that way as well, where maybe you're playing smaller, you got Patrick at power forward, you've got some sort of versatility at center where maybe Thad's playing some center, you're running Lonzo, you're running Levine, and maybe Ayo's out there as well.
Right.
And, you're really hustling hard on defense. You're switching maybe you're switching 1 through 5, you're switching 1 through 4, whatever it may be. But you're getting these transition opportunities where you're initially making your value known on defense, poking the ball away like he was here against Baylor in your clip here, Larro. And then, enable him to find himself offensively in transition, which is probably his best offensive skill.
Yeah.
And, that makes sense for Ayo. But then coming back to what we were saying before about Lonzo, like that's when Lonzo's at his best as well. So like there's some crossover between these guys in terms of where their best skill set will come in the half court, on offense, and less so on the half court side here with Ayo. Obviously Lonzo can spot up and shoot and get those three balls going. But this is the kind of stuff where I envision Ayo being, at least some sort of facsimile of Terrence Mann coming in and doing some things that Shaq Harrison was doing, where he would come in and disrupt the game, play like balls to the wall for 15, 20 minutes and really impact the game from that point of view with his energy and his motor. So that's what I'm hopeful for from him in year one. And to be fair, I think that's what the Bulls will just desperately need, just based on how I'm assuming this roster construction will be, in a week or two's time. So there is scope for him to get a role, in year one, and there is scope for him to be a productive player in year one, but he just needs to hone in on the things that he's good at. Exactly. And the things that this team needs him to be, and just focus entirely on that. And I think he can do. Clearly, his role is going to have to change. Yeah. And when he's just limiting his role, I think he can be effective when he's got that more narrow scope of role.
Yeah. No, I'm totally in agreement with you, man. So
hey, Larro and Mark. So one thing I was thinking of as Mark, as you were talking about the possible synergy with Lonzo, is Lonzo on the defensive end is much, much better off ball as kind of like a roamer. Like a free safety type of guy, rather than a point of attack defender. Now he's definitely an improvement at the point of attack from what we have. Yeah, but that's a role that Ayo could play on the defensive end when he shares the floor with Lonzo. Put Ayo at the point of attack, have Lonzo be the guy behind the play at the help defense. And so when those types of things happen, where Ayo pokes the ball away, Lonzo's the guy that can take advantage of that and get him in transition. So, and I think that puts Lonzo in a better spot on defense in the first place. So that would be, we're talking about Lonzo Ball like he's already here, which, knock on wood, please just.
I know, right?
Don't let this video look really stupid in like 3 days. But
and like to go along with what you're saying too, Chris, is like also too. Obviously, Ayo's not going to start, but like you can run these type of lineups where, again, knock on wood, where this Lonzo. Ayo, Pat at the 4, Lonzo at the 3, Ayo at 2, maybe wherever you want to do it, whatever you want to do. Maybe you got Zach at the 1, Ayo at the 2, and you got that and Vooch, right? But you can switch these things. You can switch screens. You can you've got guys where now you can do these switches and everything like that. What you would like to do. Maybe Billy would throw something out there like that now. And man, I think he brings some more stuff to you on that end. And but this is another thing. I thought this was more of a realistic thing. We've seen Pat, when he had to guard the 3 or point of attack at points like this. This is realistic, where you got to run through a couple guys, and as you can see, he gets hit. But like the wingspan, the ability to continue, right, to fight through these screens and still be able to affect the lob. If he just dies on it, that's a lob, that's a dunk. But his wingspan affects that, and it basically the accuracy of this pass is just all thrown off because of the wingspan. So like these are the things, like you said again, Mark. Like these are the things that he has to hone in and really just be like, you know what? If I want minutes, if I want to play for my hometown team, and contribute, this is what I have to do to be on the floor. And this is the ground floor. Who knows? Maybe who knows, right? Maybe he improves and brings more, but like the ground level, this is what he has to do, and
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's scope for him to do that because, I mean, he's 21, so he's a little bit older, but because he's 21, he's had more time to mature into his body. Not to say he's not done growing and developing from a physical standpoint, but he's 21, he's 200 pounds. You mentioned the +5 in terms of wingspan from his height. So there is scope for him from a physical perspective to really impact that side of the ball. And not to say he's not a premier athlete, because he's not, but he's a good enough athlete to the point where he can be a plus defender. So he can remain connected on defense. Even if he gets beat, he can get back into the play. He can stay connected to the hip. He can do all those sorts of things. So I think, there most certainly is some scope for Ayo to be good on defense. And because he is that little bit older and because his body is what it is, I don't think we're going to have the same issues that we do. We say like Kobe, for example, where if screen gets hit, his body's just not NBA ready still, I don't believe. So I don't think that's going to be the issue with Ayo. On defense, I'm expecting some things. And I'm hoping that off-ball issues maybe get cleaned up when, one, he learns more off-ball defense, with the fact that he's not necessarily having to pour so much energy on offense as well, that maybe he can stay connected and engaged on the off-ball defense as well. So, look, I'm expecting some things from Ayo. Not necessarily offensively. Defensively is where he's going to have to apply his trade. And to your point, like that's where he can establish himself and really make a mark here.
And this clip here, like I told you, I have more clips of defense, but again, I think people are getting the point of what he brings on that side of the ball. But what we talked about earlier, he rarely makes advanced reads, and if he does, it's either too late or it's a turnover. But if you ask him to just come up here and read a ball screen and read the roll man, I mean, he could do this. He can make that read, right? He can make this read and every single time. He can do that. He was one of the best in college basketball of hitting the roll man off pick and roll. And this is Baylor obviously won the national championship, but their defense, this is why I picked this game, because their defense was elite in this game. I mean, they were elite in this game, switching everything, really playing the pick and roll well. This is just a really good job of Adam Miller bringing this tagger out of the way here. But like that's just. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. I got to go coach on you for a second. That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. You got the pick and roll, you move the tag, man. You lift here, boom. Like that's just good stuff. But again, that's a simple read. That's a read that he doesn't have to read. He knows what's going on. He knows Trent Frazier is going to lift. He knows Adam Miller is going to go on the other side. So he knows that if they're going to blitz the screen, if they're going to play at the level, I'm going to have that roll man every single time. And that stuff, like I said, like if he's going to be put in situations where all he has to do is read Vooch, he'll be all right. He can do these things.
Yeah. So I think that's the goal. Keep it simple, right? When he starts, focus on the defensive end, make simple reads on offense if the ball's put in his hands off the bench, and that's going to put him in a position to succeed and allow his skill set to grow. One of the things that you guys mentioned was the switchability. Having a guy that's 6'5", Zach 6'5", 6'6", having guys that are switchable from 6'5" to 6'9", 1 through 4, that's really, really important, especially when you have a guy like Vooch who is not as switchable. We can't be as creative on defense at the center spot because of Vooch's athletic limitations, right? He's mostly going to be playing drop, probably not going to be able to do much more than that. And so what you have to focus on to make up for that is have good perimeter defenders that can switch. And so bringing in a guy like Ayo, I think it can be a very, very positive thing in that. To that point, Lonzo Ball, same thing, right? He's a 6'6", wing-sized guard, if you will, at worst. That can switch with Zach, that can switch with Ayo, and that's switch with TBJ, Pat. That's going to help your defense. And our defense, it was above average at the end of the year. I was very surprised that we held it down as long as we did. But it was a clear weakness, I thought, at the point of attack and on the wing in general. So Ayo can definitely bring up that level, and Lonzo, if he comes here, will be a great boon to that. So
for sure. And maybe looping this back to and tying it all up, like you sort of based on a comment you originally made, Chris, like where, you know, based on a comment I made on draft night where I see Ayo as a guy that has a lot of skills where he's good at, not necessarily great at. And we reference, you know, Patrick Williams and Wendell Carter being similarly natured to that point. I think what the luxury that someone like Ayo has versus what Patrick Williams and Wendell Carter had was he's not going to be expected to come in and, you know, reshape this organization in the way that Patrick Williams and Wendell Carter were expected to. So from that sense, he's fortunate that he can just come in and play his role, you know, impact that role and be really good at that role. And it'll be a limited one, but he can really star in that role. Whereas, you know, Wendell and Patrick, you know, they had to be something more than role guys. So I think Ayo is set up to succeed in Chicago in maybe ways that Wendell and Patrick, or let's say Patrick, we'll see with Patrick Williams, it's too early to say, but with Wendell, for example, where he was asked to be, or where the team hoped he would be more than a role guy. Ayo's got the luxury of just coming in, playing the role, and in that sense, he can succeed. So I think he's fortunate in that way, and I do think he will succeed because of that.
That's a great point. And like Chris said, we got, you know, you got to worry about, you know, baby, you know, so we're not going to hold you too long. But this is the last clip, and then we
one more.
We can talk about you know, whatever you guys want to talk about after this. But this is just dribble weave, comes off. He gets a step up from Kofi, comes off, boom, right? He makes that. Now you can say he could have made that read a little bit quicker. But just the fact of that he's seeing that and he's making it, because that is a tough, you know, you got Masio Teague jumping up there. That's a tough pass. But just the fact of, again, he's able to read the tag, right? So he's able to see, you know, Kofi drops after the step up. You got the tagger there. He finds it. Jared Butler has to get over there. And most likely, hopefully, in the next level, that's going to be a knockdown. But yeah, no, that's another situation where you can see some on-ball stuff from him, being able to see the floor a little bit here and there. But this is just a good idea of what he can do. He can see the floor a little bit, but it's not something I'm going to expect from him, you know. So, but other than that, guys, I mean, that's really, you know, about what I've got to say about him, brother Ayo. So,
all right. So
yeah.
I do have one more question then, and this is something that actually our friend Jason Pat put on Twitter within the last hour. So there's been some chatter about Pascal Siakam possibly being on the move, and there's been there was kind of like there was a thought that maybe Chicago could be a destination for him. And now it hurts me to even say it because I love Patrick Williams and I'm really high on him. I know Larro's even higher than he has been since before the draft. But if we were to get Lonzo and we're able to trade some sort of package to get Pascal Siakam in here, where do you guys think that kind of team can go? And do you think that Pascal Siakam is worth a trade of Patrick Williams and probably more things? You know, he's making 33, I want to say $34 million this year and for the next couple of years. Do you guys think that would be something worth doing or not? We'll start with you, Mark.
I mean, Bulls fans would absolutely hate it. When I floated the idea of sending out Patrick Williams for Ben Simmons, now Ben Simmons maybe is going through a bit of a PR issue at the moment, so maybe that was problematic. But the fan base is wedded to Patrick Williams in a way that I don't think a lot of prospects in a long time have been to this fan base. Maybe since Derrick Rose even. Like, Zach LaVine even has gone through so much nonsense on Twitter and forums and those sorts of things about, the fan base wanting to trade him. Like, there's still people that want to get rid of LaVine now, whereas Patrick, like, so much of the fan base is convinced that this dude is the second coming of Kawhi, that just the thought of trading him for anyone, if you put that on the timeline, you're going to get a lot of pushback, let's say. So I think it makes sense. I think the Bulls should be putting Patrick Williams on the trade block. And the reason why I think that is coming back to a comment I made earlier where I mentioned the Bulls just don't have a lot of assets on the table, and the fact that they've already cashed in, the 2021 pick, they're cashing in the 2023 pick. Lowry's gone. They're probably not getting anything from him. Chris Dunn went without anything. I guess their treasure chest of assets isn't really there's not much in there, let's say. So in that sense, one of the biggest chips that they do have to play is Patrick Williams, and you have to make a call at this point. You just traded for a guy who's going to be 31, a 31-year-old center who should age pretty gracefully, but he's 31, man. So you need to make a play pretty soon, and not only that, we haven't necessarily even discussed Zach LaVine and his contract extension. If you don't use cap space to extend this dude in the offseason, then you're going into this season where he's potentially an unrestricted free agent and he can do whatever he wants at the end of that. So you really need to sell this dude that you're all about winning and you're all about putting the best product on the court as quick as you can. And in that situation where Patrick Williams, he may evolve into being a really, really good player, but in year 2, is he going to be anything more than a 12, 13-point per game scorer? Maybe, hopefully. I would love that to be the case. But if that's not going to be the case, does his timeline match up with Nikola Vucevic? No. Does his timeline even match up with Zach LaVine? I mean, that's questionable as well. So I think Patrick needs to be on the block, depending on what you're doing for agency. Then maybe Kobe needs to be on the block as well. And I don't know, whether it's for Siakam, whether it's for someone else, I think the Bulls seriously need to consider trading Patrick Williams if they are trying to maximize Zach LaVine's prime and the connection between LaVine and Vucevic. Then I think if we're just being objective about it and just realizing the Bulls just have limited assets, and Patrick being the one blue chip asset that they may have, if he's even a blue chip asset, then he has to be on the block. And that's unfortunately the reality of the situation. If that makes people mad, then I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
Remember when we first started this show, in the beginning, it was, Patrick Williams, he plays defense this way, and, he's only 19. But I'm sorry. Pascal Siakam is on the block, and they would like Patrick Williams. I'm sorry, man. I mean, it's just where we at the timeline. I mean, we got rid of Wendell. If we sell Wendell, I would, and we didn't have Vooch, maybe I would say, you know what, let's not think about it. We're not where we need to be. But you have Zach, you have Vooch, you need a third star, and Pascal is who we would hope Pat would be. And why don't you bring that third guy in? And that's just where I'm at. Pascal is somebody that, man, it's hard to pass up on Pascal, man. And it's not like he's some 30-year-old. What is he, 26, 27? So it's not like you could still pair him and Zach together, and Vooch's contract ends. You can maybe try to go get another third star. So it's not like you get him and you're done. No, you can still try to fight until Vooch's contract is up. Hopefully you re-sign Zach into a long-term deal. And once Vooch is done, or he wants to sign a cheaper contract to stay here, maybe you go get another third star and you can make another run, So I love Pat. Pat's my son, but that doesn't mean I can't root for him on the Raptors. That doesn't mean I can't go get a Raptors Patrick Williams jersey. That's not what that means. So that's where I'm at.
From a basketball standpoint, I get it. It would really hurt me. I love rooting for guys that I like. Yeah. So the Wendell trade, even though it made all the sense in the world, it hurt my soul a little bit. And if we traded Patrick Williams, because the thing that irks me is it's not just going to be Patrick Williams. It would be Patrick Williams and maybe Thad and a first-round pick and all this, it's going to be a package. Even if it's Pat for Siakam, you're like, okay, you got to do it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a lot more stuff. It's going to be – it's a gamble, right? But as you guys mentioned, the timelines, and we knew this the moment they traded for Vooch. All right, Vooch is going to be 31. Zach's 26. Patrick Williams is 19 years old. Those three don't match up. They just don't. And maybe Patrick Williams in year 2 becomes the second coming of Kawhi. But if he's not, which it's a pretty good bet he won't be, and something like that, someone like that is available. Those are the types of opportunities you have to look into. You have to. So I don't think we have to trade him, but I agree with you, Mark. Agree with you, Larro. He's got to be available as a tradable asset if something like that were to come up. He's got to be in that conversation. You have to be willing to put him in that conversation. That hurts me. I'm going to go cry about it for a little while, I think, in bed. But that's the reality is the timelines don't match up. And so if Patrick Williams takes the normal, couple of years to really mature and become the player we want him to become, that might not line up with the timeline. So that doesn't mean that the Siakam deal is available and that they're even going to want Patrick Williams over some other deal that some other team offers. But if it is on the table, I can understand why those rumors are out there and why that would make sense from a basketball perspective. So
before we
it hurts though. It hurts.
I did see something saying that the Bulls are actually looking to move Thad and Sato to make room for Lonzo or something, I think. If I'm reading that
Where do you
right.
see this?
It's in the chat. It's from Jake Fisher. Lonzo Ball expected to receive a big offer sheet from the Chicago Bulls once they are able to move Satoransky and Thad Young. Bulls will presumably go after Derrick Rose to pair with Ball to help carry the offense. This is from Jake Fisher.
I don't know about that, man.
Yeah, I mean, they may be forced into that, but they don't have to do that if they guarantee Sato's deal and trade him into a team's cap space or TPE. So they don't have to get rid of Thad in that scenario. But if for whatever reason they can't find a taker for Satoransky and they need to find a taker for Satoransky within the next 24 hours because his deal guarantees thereafter, if they can't do that, then they may have to waive both of Thad and Sato to make it work. If they want both Rose and Lonzo, but like I mentioned before, the other alternative is operating above the cap, signing and trading Lonzo to New Orleans for Lowry. Obviously, that's contingent on New Orleans wanting Lowry, and then using the mid-level on Rose. So they don't need to say goodbye to Thad, but they may need to if they're steadfast of getting in two ball handlers. So that would be very problematic because your only bigs on the roster would be Patrick, Vucevic, and Simonovic. So that wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah, that would be tough. Just a couple of comments I wanted to address before we sign off here. So Stuart33 had a comment. So this is the situation though that the New Orleans Pelicans here have extended the qualifying offer. They are going after Kyle Lowry, but if they don't, if he goes to Dallas, New York, Miami, what's to say that the Pelicans won't match Alonzo? They could. And we could end up, like we talked about before, with a guy like Dennis Schroeder or some other option. Maybe we get Goran Dragic from Miami or something. So those are definitely possibilities. And the other one was DeJounte Murray. I know Larry and I talked about this on another episode. I would love DeJounte Murray on this team, even more than Lonzo, I think, and especially at his price. But I don't know what kind of tradable assets the Spurs are looking for. I do know they're interested in Lowry. Marketing, but they currently can just sign him outright with their cap space, but they may have other bigger fish to fry first, and there may be some sort of sign and trade available. But and then Rob talking about trading Pat. it's tough. And then Jake Solflair, you also bring up a good point. He says, I have a bad feeling this accelerated rebuild isn't going to lead to actual contention, but I'd be up to write it out. That's kind of where I am. I have some doubts that this, even a team with Lonzo, Siakam, Zach, and Vooch can be a contender. Maybe. I think they could probably be a second round of the playoffs team at that point. But are they an actual contender? I don't know. But at this point, we don't have any other option except to trust that the guys running the show are better than the last guys running the show.
Yeah, and look, to that point, just quickly, if the baseline or the expectation is contention and being a true contender, then I don't think there's really many paths to that happening. So that's why I'm not even really concerned with that, to be honest with you. And it's not something that I'm trying to achieve or expecting. Not that I'm trying to achieve, or it's not something I'm expecting the Bulls to actually be able to hit, because the path contention is so damn hard. And the way the roster is set up, the limited assets the Bulls have, and we can think whatever we can about Pat. Vucevic is obviously aging. He's probably only got 2 to 3 years of quality basketball left. Like, depends what we mean by contention, but if we mean competing for a championship, then there's no realistic path for that happening anyway. So I'm not concerned with that, and I would pledge that most Bulls fans maybe don't think about that, because if that's all you're thinking about, then you're going to be disappointed. But if you come back and maybe think about realistic outcomes for this team, then what the Hawks achieved this season, where you can get to a first round, you can get to a second round, and if things break right, either via injuries or matchups or whatever it might be, maybe this team can get to an Eastern Conference Finals. And there's value in that. I mean, is that true contention? Not really, but ultimately, who cares? I just want to see good basketball. I want to see the Bulls be relevant again. And, there's value in, not to sound like a complete tosser here, but there's value in the journey, so to speak. And having a team that can be good for 2 to 3 years and can sort of compete in the playoffs, get into the second round, maybe sneak into an Eastern Conference final here or there. Like, I don't know. I would hang my hat on that, and I would be content with that.
I am completely with you on that. I think people need to understand that, like, going that far is recruiting. Like, if you can go that far and be successful, obviously you're successful if you go that far, but like, that makes players want to come play. Like, okay, these guys are close. If I come play, who knows? Maybe I'll take them over the top. So, like, that is a part of recruiting. If you can show success going forward, I mean, a la the Phoenix Suns. I mean, I don't think maybe, but I don't think Chris Paul goes there if he doesn't see that potential in that team, and them going 8-0 and seeing what they did in that run and what he could potentially be in that offense. So I think that's what you got to think about as Bulls fans. Is like, yeah, like, I'm not a championship or bust guy. Like, if we're successful and we're going in deep in the playoffs and we're playing well in the regular season, that's what I want to see, because you just never know. Injuries happen. God forbid, I don't want risk any injuries on any other team, but like, things happen like that. When injuries open up, the playoffs and standings. So that's something to always think about, man. So I agree with you 100% there.
Yeah, and I think we're going to find out here in the next 48 hours how relevant we're going to be. But I think it's clear what AK's plan is, which is to get us back into relevancy and to contention and build a winner. And so I think we're going to see some hopefully better basketball this year from the Bulls. So it's an exciting time. I know I'm on the edge of my seat here. two more sleeps, right? And then we'll know the answers. I'm going to be a wreck on Monday trying to be productive otherwise. But it's been fun to kick it with you for a few minutes here, Mark. We'll let you go, but appreciate you coming on. I know we had you on before as a Larro replacement, but we wanted to bring you on as a real live celebrated guest. So thank you so much for coming on, man. Let everyone know where they can follow you, find your work, and where they can send all the hate mail for for you saying that you want to trade Patrick Williams immediately. Get him off my team.
Well, all hate mail can go to at KLA Hoops, please. That would be ideal. I'm sure he'll have many Lonzo takes that many people won't agree with, that I will be agreeing with him, and we'll be linking them to his account to get mad at. But in the event that you want to get mad at me about anything else, which I'm sure is a lot of people, at MK Hoops is where you can follow me on Twitter. Bulls HQ is my podcast. Whenever you're not listening to Bulls 101, if you want to listen to more Bulls basketball, come listen to Bulls HQ. I've been a little bit slack in my recording schedule. That happens when you have a newborn, but there's things to be talking about, whether it's the draft, free agency. We've got Summer League coming up the week after, so there's a lot of stuff going on, and soon enough. We're in August now. The season starts in October, so we're not necessarily far away. And Rob makes a good point here in the comments as well. When the Boomers win gold in Tokyo too, then that's another thing we'll be talking about too on Bulls HQ. So follow me there at MK Hoops Bulls HQ. But lads, it's been a pleasure spending some time with you here.
Yeah, it's fun, Mark, man. Like, I appreciate you coming on when you did, man. I had the baby. My wife had the baby, so obviously I had to do that. But I appreciate you doing that, brother. And as always, dude, like, keep doing what you're doing, man. You fight the fight. You don't care what anybody thinks. You don't care who tweets at you. You just say what you got to say, and I respect.
I'm too online, Larro. I'm too online. I should get offline a lot. I'm too much of an idiot to do so.
Oh man. Well, I appreciate you anyway. So thanks, guys. We'll talk to you next week. We may have a special episode if something crazy happens in this free agency period, but we'll see you guys soon. Have a great night. Talk to you later.